Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number 5010-356-600. This is a plain bearing 5-knuckle, full mortise, wide throw steel-based hinge, 3.5 by 6, removable pin, and a prime coat finish. So let's dissect the part number. First of all, the 5 means that it's a full mortise standard weight hinge. 5-knuckle and plain bearing. Full mortise, you can see from the swag on the hinge leafs there that when the leaves are brought parallel, they're meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and frame. Standard weight on the thickness, a 3.5-inch hinge like this is going to be 129 thousandths thick, I think. Let's get the caliper and test that. I don't even need to do that. There's a link below this video to the cut sheet, which will give that accurate information. It is indeed, it's 123 thousandths, forgive me. Standard weight is what that's considered. Okay. The hinge also means that it's 5-knuckle. You can see where that's coming from. Plain bearing, meaning there are no bearing packets between any of the knuckles. It is also a steel-based hinge. There is a link below this video to the cut sheet that I referred to. The lower left-hand corner gives you 3 columns, and those columns are first different in the base material. So the 5000, or the 5010 in this instance, because it's a wide throw hinge, is a steel-based hinge. And you can see how that part number changes from 5010 to a 5011 if you wanted a brass or a bronze hinge, depending on your finish, or 5012 if you wanted a stainless steel base hinge. The 10 in the part number means wide throw. The next wide throw that you see down below is a BB 5010. That's the same hinge except that it's got 2 bearing packets. And that is the only other wide throw on here. But you can see how all of those part number changes as the hinge changes. So the 5000 is just a regular non-wide throw hinge. The hinges that are 8000 series are 3-knuckle. The LB 8000 would be a concealed, maintenance-free type of bearing construction called lube bearing. And then you've got the dimensions as they apply the A dimension in the table on the right-hand side, depending on what hinge size you're dealing with. So specifically, we're in the 5010 row all the way over. We'll give you that 2 3/16 A dimension, should you want to know that. All the other dimensions are indicated there. They give locations for the screw holes, which is nice to know. You might be wanting to match it up against an existing hinge. And speaking of screw holes, screws are included in a complimentary finish. Now, looking at the rest of the hinge, in terms of the specifications, the part number, the 356 is the size. That means that this hinge is 3.5 inches tall and 6 inches wide, which is it's a relatively common size for a wide throw hinge. The 600 part of the part number, let's back up, the size. 3.5 specifically means the height. The height is the first dimension in hinges like this, and is important to know that the height is the first dimension. So it goes counter to how doors are. Doors are the width first and then the height. These hinges are the opposite of that sort of arrangement. Height first, then the width, measured when the hinge is laid open in front of you. Important to know. This would not be a 6 by 3.5 is what I'm trying to say. Other sizes, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5 are all available. 5, 6, 7, and 8 are available. Not in all of those. You couldn't get a 3.5 by 8, but many of those combinations are available. There is a link below this video to an exhaustive video, another video that allows you to get inside of the formula by which wide throw hinge requirements are determined. The 600, moving on in the part number, means 2 things. It means, again, this is a steel-based hinge, and it means that it's primed for painting. That's just a typical prime coat finish. Looking at the rest of the information in the extended description, nothing else is really there except the reference to this pin is removable. Certainly something that is typical and common. To be able to remove a pin from a hinge is obviously normal. the reason I point this out is a removable pin would not be the best option. If you had an exterior door that swing out, you would want to look for the non-removable pin version of this hinge, which is common and typical. And and also if it's an exterior door, sometimes ball bearing hinges are the way to go with those as well. If it's an exterior door, it's kind of assumed the frequency of use will be higher than standard, and ball bearing is always a good idea. Now, wide throw hinges. They're typically used when you have an instance by which on the pull side of the door you have unusually thick casing. You might have a condition of there being a very thick casing. In order to get back band around it, there's very unusual or thick millwork. You might have an instance by which it is an exterior door and there are shutters applied to the face of the masonry wall on the outside. So you need a wide throw hinge because you want the door to go beyond about 90 degrees. You want it to get up and back around that. Speaking of shutters in applications like this, there historical lighthouse in Florida. It has the original masonry building, Ponce de Leon Lighthouse, I believe it is. Windows, pairs of windows, okay? They're set deep into the wall, and in order to get the windows just to clear the brick face, they need wide throw hinges so that the pivot point is kicked out further to be able to get the door to wrap around that. You might have brick mold on an exterior opening, or actually, speaking of Florida, homes built 100 plus years ago, coastal homes, 3-story tall buildings, the first floor wall thicknesses are incredibly thick, 18-inch, that kind of thing. Those doors in those openings separating rooms feature the doors pushed into the opening, so you'll have an 18-inch wide or thick, 18-inch deep frame. Well, those doors aren't kicked all the way out. That would look unusual. So those doors are pushed in several inches. And these doors have incredibly wide throw hinges because they need the doors to get open, like a normal hinge would. The original Capitol building in the state of Iowa is also like that. On many instances where the doors are pushed in to the frame. Because when you're standing on the pull side of the door, if you run your hand over the frame and the face of the door is inset. 3/32 of an inch, some very small amount. But it's almost flush, not exactly. But in that instance, a normal hinge works because that inset is quite technically negligible. But imagine if that inset was 2-inch or 10-inch or 3/4 inch. Your hinge would have to take that into account, and that's the existence of wide throw hinges. And if you're thinking wide throw hinges, you might need to consider extended lip strike plates as well. Those two things often go hand in hand. Available in all of those many sizes that we had talked about before, several different finishes on steel base or brass or bronze base material, different finishes as well. The last thing I'd like to point out to you is the Bommer logo. And right above it, it says Made in USA, a fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I to represent them. If you have any questions on the Bommer number 5010-356-600 wide throw hinge or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us.